Alright, in this video I'm going to tell you what I did to make this Terminator stand. It's actually not too hard, but there's some pitfalls you need to avoid. And if you take my advice, you should have no problems with this whatsoever. Alright, so the first thing is finding the skulls. Now, the skulls that I found were $5 a piece at Spencer's Gifts, and it was actually a skull keychain where I took the keychain out, I puttied up the hole, and then I painted these things a desert tan. I didn't want to make it white because I thought it would stand out too much. And then, I dirtied it up with some weathering, and I painted the eye sockets kind of like this dark gray. It's actually black, but, it kind of looks dark gray here. But there are I know on eBay you can find some skulls for around $2 each. Personally, I like the look of these skulls better, but there's also a guy on eBay selling custom Terminator skulls, specifically designed for this purpose of building stands, and I have to say his skulls look great. They're not cheap. It's $15 for 3, but I think it's well worth it. Just get 3, or if you really like a lot of skulls, I guess get 6. But that's $30 just for skulls. So it just depends on how many skulls you want to put on your stand. So you get the skulls. I painted it with an alcohol-based Tamiya acrylic. Like I said, desert tan. And that's about it. The skulls weren't too hard to do. Now, the base is essentially just a piece of wood. I bought it at Home Depot, had them cut it, and yeah, that's about it. But what's on the base is plaster of Paris. You should be able to find it at your local hardware store or Michael's store. Runs about, I think, $6, and it works pretty well. I mean, what you want to do is you want to get a water-based black acrylic paint and mix it in with the plaster of Paris, and of course add water to it. And I would get it to the consistency of maybe toothpaste, for your first coat. Then you lay that first coat down, all over the board, and you let it dry. Now here's where it gets kind of tricky. What happened with me is after I put the plaster on and it dried, the plaster actually warped the board. I don't know if you can tell from here, but the board is a little bit curved. And that's from the plaster. When it dried, it warped it. So the problem is, as that board warps, the plaster is going to crack because it's not going to adhere to the board. And I had a whole bunch of cracks right here. So what I decided to do was, okay, I'll just replaster that and it should be fine. Well, I replastered it and it cracked again. And so I decided I would use model putty to fill in the cracks. So I puttied all around here to fill up the seams, and lo and behold, it cracked again. So at this point I was getting really annoyed, and I figured out the best thing to do, and I should have done this from the beginning, is after you put on the first coat and it cracks, don't patch it up with more putty. What you want to do is you want to use Elmer's glue, which is a little more flexible, and glue all those pieces right onto the board. If some of the pieces break off, fine. Just put glue under it, glue it back onto the board. And then fill in those cracks after you've glued it back onto the board and there's a solid bond. You'll probably have a little bit of cracks. Then fill those cracks with the plaster of Paris again. And if you do that, then you shouldn't have this whole cracking problem, which I did. And it'll save you a lot of headaches. Now, if you look at the textures right here, this flat part was more of that toothpaste type consistency. But if you want to get more of a rocky type consistency, like right there under the skull, just don't put as much water into the plaster of Paris. You know, put it on a little more clumpy. Stick your skulls in while it's wet, so that the skulls would adhere to the plaster, and you should be good. Oh, and behind the Terminator, you can see some, pieces that I tried to make look like concrete. I succeeded a little bit, but I could have done a better job with that. But really what those are just pieces of tile that I smashed up with a hammer. Then I just painted it with an alcohol-based acrylic, the Tamiya. I think it was dark gray. And then you just take clumps of your plaster of Paris, make sure it's toothpaste consistency again. Put a little on it, plop it down, it should hold. And that's about it. Like I said, the base actually only took me 2 days to make. And what really took a long time was getting all the cracks out. I mean, I was patching cracks for probably 5 days. So what I would do, like I said, is just Elmer glue that stuff down once it starts cracking, and you should be fine. Alright, well that's the base, and if you have any more questions, I guess post it onto the comments. But there we go. T800 Terminator Custom.